Kathleen Berry, you're the author of A Reluctant Spirit, that's you, a true tale of God, ghosts, and a skeptical Christian. Before we get into the juicy stuff, just a little bit about how you became a Nevadan.
Well, I was born in Southern California, LA, and I was there till I was 13. And my parents then transplanted us to Carson City, Nevada, which at that point had about a population of 25,000. So it was quite the adjustment for a teenager. But I have grown to love Nevada, love the desert, and I went to the University of Nevada, Reno, and I've just stayed here.
What are some of the kind of selling points if you were talking to someone about why Nevada over, say, California, besides the desert?
I like the fact that I don't have to drive very far to get away from everybody. So I can get out in the middle of the desert, I can get out into the Sierra Nevada, and in 30 minutes I can be away from everyone. And that's just, since nature means so much to me and my sanity, that to me that's a huge, huge plus. Also, we have incredible blue skies. I was in awe for the first couple years we lived here because I didn't know the skies could be that blue.
I was raised in LA too. How did you progress into your current job for a community college?
Well, I've been in public relations my whole life. I got a degree in public relations and journalism. And so I ended up there. And as we'll talk about later, there are no coincidences. So now I know why I got the job there. And I started off in the public information office, and then I moved to the non-credit programming side where I do marketing.
Mm-hmm. What is your favorite series that you do in the non-credit division?
Oh, that's so easy. Of course, the Nevada Ghost and Paranormal series. The first time we did a ghost class, I thought my boss had lost her mind. And now it's my baby.
Were you kind of dragged reluctantly, kicking and screaming into that responsibility, or were you like, oh, this is great, I can't wait?
Oh, no. She had to drag me. She had to drag me. When she told me, she came up to me one day and she goes, okay, we're going to do a ghost hunting class and I want you to promote it. And I think I laughed out loud and said, you've got to be kidding me. And in my head, I'm thinking, this is the silliest thing for a college to do. And then you look back at my religious roots, and I was like, either it's the silliest thing or it's just evil. And so I was very nervous about it and very apprehensive. And the first year we did this class, it sold out. My boss put it in a larger classroom. It sold out again. And so then afterwards she goes, this is going to become more than just one class, and you need to help me put it together.
How interesting. In the course of your college education, I would imagine there was some kind of tension between your religious beliefs and the paranormal.
Well, and at that point, when I was at TMCC, I wasn't going to that church anymore. But it had left seeds, and so that was something that my experiences later through the Ghost and Paranormal series, through the ghost hunts, that changed that. But it was, I was very worried about it. I thought either it was a weird dichotomy. It was either this doesn't exist, or if it does exist, I'm going to hell. This doesn't exist, or if it does exist, I'm going to hell.
For being involved with it.
Yes.
It always is bewildering to me because the Bible is full of prophecy, angels, healing with intention. There's a lot of supernatural extraordinary experiences in the Bible. So why does it say in Deuteronomy, which you quote in your book, that mediums are detestable to the Lord? If you were being a fundamentalist preacher right now,
Okay,
how would
how
you
it had
explain why
always
they don't
been
like
explained to
psychics,
me
mediums,
was that
etc.?
they are tools of the devil,
how it had
and that
always
we're
been
not supposed to
explained
tap
me
into that. I was also
that
told that angels
they
did
are
not come
tools
back
of
to
the
earth
devil,
after the
and that
Bible
we're
was
not supposed
done,
to tap into
and the
that.
Bible
I was
gave
also
us all
told
the
that
information we
angels
need.
did
There
not
was no
come back
need
to
for
earth
prophecy.
after the
There was
Bible
no
was
need for
done,
angels,
and the Bible
and
gave
that
us all the
God was
information we needed.
allowing
There was
the
no need
devil
for
to test
prophecy.
us
There was no
all.
need for
So if you
angels,
think your
and that
departed loved
God was
one came to
allowing
visit
the
you in
devil to
spirit
test us
form,
all.
it was the
So if
devil
you think
trying
your
to
departed loved one
trap
came
you
to visit
into
you
his
in
world.
spirit form, it
So
was
there
the
was a
devil
lot of
trying
fear,
to
a lot of fear.
trap you into his world. So there was a lot of fear, a lot of fear.
Right.
Right.
So in other words, they acknowledge that these kind of abilities exist, but they say that was
Yes.
only okay when the Bible was written down.
Yeah, and like I
It's
said,
not
I
that they don't exist,
I don't
but
want to speak
then they
for
were good,
all
and now they're
evangelicals,
satanic.
but there were two different
and
churches
like
I
said,
went to, and they both
I
had
don't
the
wanna
same
speak
message.
for all
And
evangelicals,
I had
but there were
it
two
was
different
really
churches I went to, and they
ironic
both
because
had
when
the
you're
same
born
message.
again, when I was born
And
again,
I had it.
I was
really
sitting in the
ironic
quad at
because when you're
UNR
born
at
again, when
night.
I
It was a
born
warm
again,
evening, just beautiful, and I was talking to a
sitting in the
friend, and I was
quad at
really depressed,
UNR at night.
and she had
It was
me
warm
profess that
evening,
Jesus
just
was my
beautiful, and I was
savior,
talking to a
and I
friend,
had
and I was
always
really
been very
depressed,
spiritual, always been
and
very
she
religious,
had me
and I
profess
did that,
Jesus
and when
was
I
my
did that,
savior,
I had a
and I
profound
had
mystical
always been very
experience,
spiritual, always been very
and
religious.
I could
And I
feel
did that, and when I
light
did that,
and
I had a
tingling
profound
coming through my
mystical
head
experience.
into my body when
And
it happened.
I could
It was
feel
the most
light
pure,
and tingling
amazing
coming
love.
through my head into my
And
body when it
but
happened.
when I
It
started
was
going to our church,
the
I
most
immediately
pure,
realized I could
amazing
not share
love.
that experience with
And
them because
but
they
when I
wouldn't
started
get
going
that.
to our church, I
They
immediately
would
realized I
think
could not
something's
share that
wrong with
experience
me.
with them because they wouldn't get
So,
that.
it's so
They
I just
would
kind of,
think
okay, this
something's
is me. I
wrong with
mean,
me.
as a child, I felt God's
So,
presence too. So
so
that
I just
immediately
kind of,
connected me
okay,
to
this
my
is me. I mean,
childhood,
as a child, I
and
felt
that
God's
this is the
presence
path I'm
too.
supposed to
So
be
that
on.
immediately connected me to my childhood, and that this is the path I'm supposed to be on.
When you were a child, you would see, I guess, what you could call ghosts or what you call dark shadows, that like the one that you named the circus master because he had animals around him. And then the amazing thing is that 40 years later, your mother said, "Oh yeah, I saw him," and it really confirmed that you weren't having nightmares or imagining. They really were this kind of form out there.
Actually, my mom and I talked about
any
this
ideas
more
who that
in
circus
depth about 3
master
months ago.
is?
And she
Actually,
believes
my mom and I
it
talked
was
about
the
this
woman who
more
owned
in
its
depth about
husband
3 months
because
ago.
he had been there, but he had
And she
died before we had
believes
moved
it
in,
was
and
the
she
woman who
thought
owned
it was
its
him.
husband.
But the
Because he had
timing
been
was
there, but he
really
had died before we moved
amazing.
in.
There are
And
no
she thought it was
coincidences.
him.
I
But the timing was
I had that
really
experience as a child,
amazing.
and
There
I
are
just
no
thought I had a very
coincidences.
vivid imagination, but it never left me. I mean, I could
had
see
that
them
experience as
around
a
my
child,
crib.
and I just
And
thought I
then
had a very vivid
just shortly,
imagination,
it
but
had to
never
be
left me. I mean,
6
I could
months
see them
before I
around
went
my
to
crib.
Goldfield,
And
so it was
then
very close
just
to that.
shortly, it had to be
When
6
my
months
mother
before I went
just
to Goldfield.
popped in and,
So it was
and
very
said this
close
had
to
happened
that.
to her. And
When my mother
so
just
that was a validation
popped
that I
in
think I
and said this
needed
had
to
happened to her.
have
And
prior to the
so that
experience
was
at the
a
Goldfield
validation that I
Hotel.
think I needed
It's like
to
everything was
have
orchestrated. All these
prior
little
to
things
the
I went
experience
through,
at the
nothing was a
Goldfield Hotel.
coincidence.
It's like everything was orchestrated. All these little things I went through, nothing was a coincidence.
Well, and later on, you heard a divine voice saying, "Yes, I arranged all this so you would be
Yes.
supported in
Yes.
your development."
And
And that voice you
but
felt
I
was
think we can
God.
all
Yeah.
experience
Yeah.
God
Yes.
the universal power, whatever you want to call it. I think we all have that ability.
God,
and
the universal
I always feel
power,
like when
whatever
I
you wanna
get
call it, I think
something
we all have
totally
that
out of the
ability.
blue that I'm not
And
thinking about,
I
and
always
it
feel
comes
like
with all
when
this
I
love,
get something
I
totally
feel
out
that
of
is the
blue
universal
that I'm
power.
not thinking about, and it comes with all this love, I feel that is the universal power.
Mm-hmm. People might be interested, who are interested in synchronicity. Gary Schwartz at the University of Arizona does all this kind of paranormal work, and he has a book about super synchronicity. And I think he shares one of his experiences running into 36 ducks at different times. Let's talk about, before your adventure with the ghost at the Goldfield Hotel, some other kind of experiences as what people call a sensitive, and that is you had a premonition that you would win a raffle to Africa. You were absolutely certain. Is
we
that
were
right?
in our 20s.
I was.
I mean, I lived on popcorn and pancakes to go to Africa.
We were in our
And
20s.
when I came back, I got this mailer from a place we went to, and they said, do this raffle. And so I thought, well, I'll never be able to go to Africa again. I'll never be able to afford it. So I filled it out. And that night, I had the most vivid dream that I won. And I woke up stressed that I was going to have to tell my boss that I was going on another long vacation.
I woke up stressed.
And they had the deadline. They had the deadline on the raffle. We will call people on so-and-so date, whoever won. And that night I was going to bed, and I told Ken, I said, they didn't call me. I know I won it. They didn't call me. And he goes, you did not win it. And then the next morning they called me.
I won it. They didn't call me.
It was just a fantastic trip.
And then the next morning they
just
called
amazing.
me. It was just a fantastic trip and just amazing.
Do you think you had some kind of maybe past life connections with Africa that it's so meaningful to you?
My first impression of the Serengeti was, this is ugly and it's not what I thought it'd be. But there was this very deep connection to the land and the place. And I felt a sense of peace there. And I've only had two places. I've traveled quite a bit, and there's only been two places in my life like that, and that's the Serengeti and the Scottish Highlands.
I've only had two places. I've traveled quite a bit, and there's only been two places in my life like that, and that's
Tanzania.
The Serengeti and the Scottish Highlands.
It's the Masai Mara in
And the Serengeti's in Kenya, right?
Tanzania. It's the Masai Mara in Kenya.
Wow. And then you had some communication with relatives who'd passed over, like Aunt Ruby and your uncle. What
part of it was
message?
Just to, once again, this was before Goldfield, so it was to set the stage for me to be open to the idea that our consciousness survives after death.
Set the stage for me to be
and for my uncle, he had been gone. He had crossed over like 2-3 weeks earlier, so he wasn't constantly in my thoughts. And I was just laying in bed, and it was a crisp night, and you put your hand out from under the covers and it gets cold, and then I just felt this warmth and squeezing on my hand, and then I knew it was him, and I knew what he was basically telling me was that he loved me and that I would be okay.
And I knew it was him. I knew what he was basically telling me was
that's what I feel that was, and that was earlier with Ruby.
That's
about a month or two before I started before I went to the Goldfield Hotel, I started meditating regularly.
A month or
I had
two
gone to a
before I
psychic
started
development
before I
class,
went to the Goldfield Hotel, I started
and
meditating regularly.
she suggested you do that. So
gone to a
I was
psychic
meditating, and I
class,
wasn't thinking about my aunt. She had passed away in 2000.
So I was meditating, and I wasn't thinking about my aunt.
I think I was just kind of keyed up, and she just kind of came through, and she helped me to feel better, and that what I'm doing is not wrong, because I was still really fighting with, what am I doing here? Why am I trying to see if I have psychic abilities when I think that God does not want me to have them, which now I know is completely not my mindset.
When I think that God does not want me to have it, which now I know is completely not my mindset or my belief.
Right. And then there was another really lovely experience where you were setting up the Lake Mansion in Reno for an event, and there were these little antiques in the parlor that you put in a bedroom so they would be safe from the
Well,
public.
I got there about
And then
6:30
what
in the
happened
morning
the next
because it was a
morning when
morning
you
press
came
conference.
to get everything ready?
And the historical society ran the first floor. So our offices were on the second floor, and they're like, you just be careful, make sure you get everything breakable out of the way. And I went in, and everything was back exactly where it had been. I was the last one in the building the night before. So I called the janitors and I said, what are you doing? I had moved it all and I'm having to move it all again. And they said, we were there when you were there. We haven't been there since. And that is a very active building. Other people in my office had experiences with things running up the stairs and seeing shadows at the door and knocking at the door, like during a snowstorm, just pounding on the door. And one guy came raining down the stairs, saw guys standing on the other side, opened it up. There's snow everywhere, no footprints, no person, no sign of anyone. So it was a very active place. So I've worked in several buildings that were very active, but I kept thinking it was my imagination and that these things didn't exist. But I kept thinking it was my imagination and that these things didn't exist.
One more pre-Goldfield Hotel experience that I thought was great is the psychic that Vicki Gay, called you up and she said, my guide suggested I call you, gave me your phone number, which is very specific information.
I had always thought psychics were
calling you?
Honestly, that they were just showmen. And she had done a presentation for one of our other programmers. At that point, I wasn't really involved with the ghost series. And so she had done something. And that programmer came into my office and we were sitting there and I'm going, ask her to teach a full-blown psychic development class, because we haven't done anything like that. And we were talking back and forth. And just as my coworker said, okay, I'm going to go call her now, that's when my phone rang. I never talked to Vicki. I had never had any dealings with her. And she just called and said, I was given your number by spirit and you have something to tell me. And I was floored. I was absolutely floored. And then I meet these people that are dealing with the paranormal, and they're also normal. That was such a shock for me because I expected them all to be kooks and weirdos, and they're intelligent people and they're insightful people. And it's just been an amazing journey. And it's just been an amazing journey.
I'll say. Okay. Then a lot of your book is about the KTVW TV station documentary about the Goldfield Hotel. And I read that it was built in 1902 as part of the gold rush. So Goldfield was a town and it was flush with money because of the gold rush. And it's supposed to be one of the most haunted places in the U.S. So the TV station was going to do a show about the activity there, right?
So when I had signed up on a quirk for this psychic development class because I was still so shocked that Vicki had called me out of the blue, so I'm like, I want to learn more. So I think it was after the first class, I got a call from the local CBS affiliate, and they said, we want to do a Halloween story surrounding ghosts. Will you set it up? So, and I was asked that quite a bit at that time. That was before ghost hunting really became that common. And so one of our instructors set up and arranged for them to go to the Goldfield. I was not intending to go. I just wanted to stay out of the way and let them do their stuff because what did I know about it? I didn't know anything about it, and I didn't believe in it. I just wanted to stay out of the way and let them do their stuff because what did I know about it? I didn't know anything about it, and I didn't believe in it. Yes.
And then they asked you to go as kind of an
is a
impartial
very
observer.
kind, compassionate man,
Yes.
and I think
Yes.
he was doing that to
the
show his
anchor
appreciation
man
that I was
is
able
a
to
very
set this
kind,
up, because at
compassionate
that
man,
time
and I think
people were
he
not
was doing that
spending
to
the
show his
night in the
appreciation
hotel.
that
The
I was
hotel
able
had been
to
closed
set
since the
this up,
40s.
because at that time,
Actually, the hotel
people were
is
not
the third hotel
spending
that's
the
been
night
on
in the
that site.
hotel. The hotel had been
It
closed
started
since the
off as
40s.
a mine.
Actually, the hotel is
Then
the
there was a
third hotel that's
wooden
been on that
structure,
site.
and it burnt to the
It
ground.
started off
Then
as
they
a
rebuilt it
mine.
quickly. Then there was an electrical
Then there was a
fire,
wooden
and I think 2 or
structure, and it
3
burnt to the
people
ground.
died in
Then
that.
they
So the
rebuilt it
building
quickly.
that's
Then there
there
was an electrical
now
fire,
was built in
and I think 2 or 3
1907.
people
The others
died
came
in that.
earlier,
So the building
and
that's there
they made it
now was built
fireproof,
in
basically. It
1907.
had
The
fire
others came earlier,
exits and fire
and they
ladders
made
and
it
brick and
fireproof,
stone.
basically. It
It's
had
just a
fire
huge building. If
exits and
anybody's ever
fire
driven between Las
ladders
Vegas and Reno,
brick and stone. It's
Goldfield
just
is
a
just about in the
huge
center
building. If
spot,
anybody's ever
and it's
driven
4
between Las
stories,
Vegas
and it's
and
just
Reno,
huge.
Goldfield is just about in the center spot, and it's 4 stories, and it's just huge.
And
It
someone
has come
is
to a stop.
renovating it bit by
Unfortunately,
bit.
last week
Is
the
that
owner
what's
passed
happening with
away.
it now?
So
It has come to a
he
stop.
was starting to, his health
Unfortunately,
was
last
starting to
week the
fail,
owner passed
and
away.
my understanding is that they
So,
stopped the restoration
he was
efforts
starting
probably
to-
5
his
or
health was
6
starting
months
to
ago.
fail, and my
So, but they've
understanding
put a
is that
whole
they
new
stopped
roof
the
in, they put an all
restoration
new
efforts
electrical,
probably 5 or 6
stuff like that. So
months
I'm
ago.
hoping that
So,
someone
but they
will
put a whole
continue,
new
because
roof
they've
in,
made
they
such
put in all new
major
electrical
improvements
stuff like
on
that.
being
So I'm
able to
hoping
reopen
that
it. And it's also
someone
been
will
a
continue
target
because
of a
they've
lot
made
of
such
vandalism,
major
being closed for so long. It
improvements on
hasn't
being able to
been
reopen it, and
a
it's also
public
been a
business
target
since
of
the
a lot of
1940s.
vandalism, being closed for so long. It hasn't been a public business since the 1940s.
Wow. Why do you think it is that that particular place is supposed to be one of the most haunted? I mean, does it have something to do with the history of the building or the vortices in the natural environment?
There's a couple different ideas.
Why is
it could
it
be
so
alchemy,
active?
which I don't really
Well,
understand real well, but it is
There's a couple different
over
ideas.
a
It could
gold
be
vein,
alchemy,
and there
which
was
I
a
don't
mine
really
there, and there's
understand
still a
real well,
mine
but it
shaft in the
is
basement.
over
So
a
that
gold
could have
vein,
something to do
and
with
there was
it.
a mine
The
there, and
caretaker,
there's still
who
a
was the
mine
caretaker
shaft
of
in
the
the
building
basement.
for
So
decades,
that could have something to do with it.
she said
The
that
caretaker,
there
who
is
was
one
the
prominent
caretaker of the building
vortex,
for
and that
decades,
vortex serves as a portal
she
between the
said
spirit
that
world
there is one
and our
prominent
world.
vortex.
And this
that
was a
that
show
vortex
place
serves
in
as
its
a
day.
portal between
It was,
spirit
you know, the
world
most fancy,
and our world.
sophisticated building in the
And
state
this
of
was a
Nevada at
show
that
place
time.
in its day.
They had
It
weekly
was, the most
dances
fancy,
at the ballroom,
sophisticated
and it
building
was
in
things
the
where
state of
everybody
Nevada
came
at
from
that time.
all over
They had
to
weekly
participate.
dances at the
So
ballroom.
my
and there was
personal
things
feeling
where
is
everybody
you've
came
got
from
this
all
vortex there.
over
You have a lot of
to
people that had
participate.
very fond memories,
So
and a
my
lot of them
personal
come
feeling
and
is
go,
you've got this
and they
vortex
want to
there.
see.
You
I
have
think
a lot
there
of people that
are a
have
couple
very
stuck
fond memories,
entities,
and a lot of them come and go. And they
but
want to
I
see.
think that for the
there
most part,
are a
it's
couple
just,
stuck
it's easier
entities,
for them to show up there. It's
but
easier for
I
them
think
to
that for the
manifest
most
in
part,
some way.
it's easier for them to show up there. It's easier for them to manifest in some way.
There was a group of people, spirits, who threw a brick at some earlier investigators, and then your group talked to them, and they said, "Yes, we threw the brick, but no thanks." They said, "We've already done that," and they were very polite. So, why bother throwing a brick?
The only other group
what's
that
the
has spent
level
the
of
night in there
consciousness of these
was
entities?
Ghost Adventurers. And the very first Ghost Adventurers TV show is the Goldfield Hotel.
Was the Ghost Adventurers.
So
and the very
this
first
is
Ghost
television,
TV show
and
is the
in
Goldfield
trying
Hotel.
to get a
So
reaction from the energies
this is
there,
television, and
I don't believe they were as
to
polite
get a reaction
as
from
I would
the
have been.
energies there,
And they were
believe
trying
they
to
were
get a
as
reaction.
polite
They were trying to get something for
as
TV.
I would have been.
And so I think they were trying to provoke, trying to get a reaction. Where when we went in, we were very respectful. It kind of shocked me because the people leading our investigation, we'd walk into a room and they'd say, "Excuse us, you know, we're so and so, and we're just here to learn about you. And if you want to talk to us, that's great. And if you don't,
we're so
That's great
and
too.
we're just here
And
to
we did
learn
that
about
in
you, and
every
if you want
room.
to talk to us,
And
that's
so when
great,
we
and
were
if
in
you
this
don't,
one room,
that's great too.
and
we did that
which we
in
knew
every
when we
room.
went in there,
And so when
they
we
had
were
told
in
me
this one
that this is the
room,
Ghost Adventures room. This is the
and,
one where the brick
which
was
we knew
thrown.
when we went in there,
And
they had
we were
told
just
me
standing
that
there,
this is the Ghost
and
Adventures
they
room.
asked
This
a
is the
couple
one where the
questions,
brick was
and as
thrown.
soon as they hit
And
play,
we were just standing
and we
there,
got those Class
and
A
they asked a
EVPs,
couple
because
questions,
honestly, I thought
and as soon as
EVPs were
they
like the
hit
biggest joke
play,
of the century.
and we got those Class A EVPs, because honestly,
Electronic
I thought
voice
EVPs were
phenomena.
like the biggest joke of the
And
century.
You better
basically,
tell people what an EVP is.
yeah, it's white noise.
Electronic
Usually it's
voice
just like
phenomena.
really weird, loud
And
white
It's
noise.
like a
You know, and
little
it's like
tape recorder.
blah, 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 blah. And
Yeah,
then
it's white
the psychic will
noise.
go,
Usually it's just
oh,
like really
this is
weird,
John the
loud,
Spirit.
white
And he
noise. You know,
says,
it's like
hi, how are you?
blah.
I'm having a
And
great
then
day.
the
You know, that
psychic will
kind
go,
of thing.
oh, this
And
is
so I
John
always
the
thought I
Spirit,
could
and he
never
says,
hear it.
hi,
They
how
would
are you?
play
I'm
it,
having
and
a
I'd
great
say,
day. That kind of
that
thing.
just sounds like white noise to
And
me.
so I always
But
thought
when
I
they
could
pushed
never hear it.
play
They would
on
play
there,
it,
there were
and I'd say,
two distinct
that just
voices,
sounds
a
like white
male
noise to me.
and a
But
female.
when they pushed play
And
on there, there
I
were
was just
two distinct
shocked
voices,
because
a
at this
male
point
and a
we'd been
female.
into it several
And
hours
I
and
was
been
just
doing things,
shocked because
and
at
it was
this point
so
we'd
clear,
been into it several
and
hours and been
it was
doing
such a
things,
blessing to me, because
and
right
it
then
was
and
so
there, that's when I
clear,
became a believer in that
and
our consciousness
it was such
survives
a
the
blessing to
physical
me because
demise of our
right then and
bodies.
there, that's when I became a believer in that our consciousness survives the physical
I think
demise of
the
our
male
bodies.
said,
And what did the
thank you, we've
male say,
already
and what did
done
the female
that.
say?
And the female voice
I
said,
think
we
the
never
male
meant to
said,
hurt anybody.
thank you, we've already done that. And the female voice said, we never meant to hurt anybody.
And then when you were there,
Yes.
they felt like one of the voices that
And
wasn't
you
so polite said,
who knows?
bitch,
Who knows
leave.
what
Yes.
that spirit's issue was?
So
And
It's just hard
who
to say.
knows?
That
Who
was
knows
on the main floor.
what that
Whether he
spirit's
felt
issue was.
that
You know,
we were
it's just hard to
encroaching
say.
on
That
his
was on
space,
the
whether
main
he was
floor,
having a bad
whether
day. I
he
know they
felt
don't have
that
days, but
we were
or
encroaching on
maybe
his
he just
space,
was
whether
an
he was having
unhappy
a
entity. Who
bad
knows?
day. I know they don't have
But
days.
yeah,
but,
that
you know.
that
Or
was
maybe he just
disconcerting,
was
because
an
that was early on
unhappy
in the
entity. Who
evening.
knows? But yeah, that was disconcerting because that was early on in the evening.
So what this kind of says to me is that just because someone is on the other side doesn't mean they're more evolved.
No, I
So,
think we take
when
a lot
if
of our
Trump passes
personality
over,
with
he's
us.
not going to become a
I see our
saint or something.
consciousness as like what
No,
makes
I
us
think we
us,
take a lot of our
so
personality
that when we
with
cross
us.
over, that's
I see
how
our
we are.
consciousness as
So,
like what makes
like I've
us
been
us,
in a brothel,
so that when we cross
and
over, that's
know,
how we are. So
you encounter
I've been in a
hostility, you
brothel,
encounter
and,
horrible sadness and oppression, and
you
the
encounter
energy from what
hostility,
happened
you
in those areas,
encounter
and from those
horrible
people that were
sadness
not
and
treated
oppression,
well,
and the
or were
energy
not
from
happy
what
in life.
happened
That
in those
definitely
areas,
comes
and from
through.
those
I
people
think
that
the
were not
spirit world is
treated
just like the
well,
human world.
or
There are
were not
good,
happy
there are
in
bad,
life. That definitely
there are
comes
kind,
through.
there are
I
people
think
that
the
say,
spirit
leave me
world is
alone,
just
I don't
like
want
the
to have anything to
human
do
world.
with you.
There are good, there are bad, there are kind, there are people that say, leave me alone, I don't want to have anything to do with you.
Interesting. Well, let's talk about the specific experiences you had in the hotel. We talked about the EVP.
Yeah,
and then
there were a couple
you
rooms
felt
we'd go
like
in,
temperature changes.
and
What did you
there
feel?
would be no real reason why
there
all
were
of a sudden it would
rooms
get
we'd
very
go
cold.
in, and
Or you would
there
feel
would be
like
no
something
real
where a draft is, but
reason
you're in
why
an
all
area
of a
where
sudden
there
it would
can't
get
be
very
a
cold.
draft.
or you
And
would feel like
the temperature
something where a
changes
draft
with
is,
that.
but you're in an area
Same
where
with
there can't be
scents.
a
The
draft.
lavender lady, the
And
lilac lady.
the
I always
temperature
get them
changes
confused
with
which one it
that.
was.
Same with scents.
There
The
were
lavender lady, the lilac
probably
lady.
6 of
I
us
always get
kind
them
of like
confused which
in
one it was.
line, one after the other.
There were
And the person in front of me goes,
probably 6
wow,
of us
I
kind
smell
of like
perfume.
in
And then it just
line,
like hit
one after the
me just
other.
long enough for me to go,
And the person in front of
wow,
us,
yeah, that's
wow, I
floral,
smell
that's
perfume. And then it just, like,
lilacs,
hit me
and
just long enough for me
like
to
the
go,
person behind me smelt
wow,
it too,
yeah,
and then it just
that's
like
floral.
dissipated, and no one
That's
smelt it.
lilacs.
But no one had been up there
like the person
in
behind me
months.
smelt it too, and then it just
And
like
none of us,
dissipated, and
we
no
were
one
in,
smelt it.
I was
But no
instructed
one
not
had
to wear
been up
perfume, not to
there
wear shiny
in months.
objects, not to wear
And
jangly
none of
stuff,
us,
because
we
we
were
didn't
I
want
was
to cause
instructed not to wear perfume, not to wear
any
shiny
more
objects,
confusion
not to wear
about the
jangly
senses
stuff,
if we
because
did
didn't
come come
want to
across
cause-
something unusual.
any more confusion about the senses if we did come across something unusual.
So because that lilac lady is consistently there, does that mean, do you think that she's stuck? Or does she kind of come when they're visitors?
You know,
or,
I'm not sure.
Why
I'm
would
not
someone
sure
be
about the
stuck
lilac
in such
lady
a
or the
boring
cowboy
existence?
or the little boy. I don't know if they're stuck there. I don't know if they just visit there a lot. For a long time, I believe that Elizabeth, probably the most famous ghost at the Goldfield Hotel, was stuck. But there had been a big outpouring of love for her, and people, when they would go, after we had been there a couple years later, they were letting more people go in. And so people would bring gifts for her and stuff like that. And the caretaker would go almost every day into Elizabeth's room and just say hi to her. It's like they had a mother-daughter relationship. And when the caretaker, she moved up to Reno, she's in assisted living now, she did come with her. Elizabeth comes and visits her. So I don't believe Elizabeth is stuck anymore. I think she can go wherever she would like to.
I think she can go wherever she would like to.
Oh, interesting. Is there any historical evidence that there was an Elizabeth who was chained to the radiator?
No one I know has been able to find information on that. We do know there were some very powerful men in Goldfield at that time that could probably do anything they wanted.
We do know
they said that when
powerful men in Goldfield at that time,
I don't know how far back people took over the hotel,
said that
there were chains attached to the radiator.
I don't know how far back
and
people took
it's
over
everything
the hotel,
from the first time I heard about it was that it was a prostitute. And then I heard it was a teenage girl who had gotten pregnant by this very powerful man, and he didn't want his reputation harmed. So it's folklore. I really believe there was an entity, an energy there. I don't know what happened. They say that the baby got thrown down the mine shaft in the basement, that the baby died in childbirth, that the baby was adopted, that she died in childbirth. It's just all over the place. So I don't believe she's a prostitute because I just the feeling and the energy in the room felt much different than say in the brothel.
The feeling and the
in the old brothel that it was more just devastation and sadness.
In the old brothel, that it was more just devastation and sadness.
Yes, and in fact,
so you
we
had
hadn't been in the hotel for 10, 15 minutes. And the person who first taught our ghost classes, who arranged for us to be there, Janice Overding, she said, Kathy, I'm just curious. I want you to come to this room, and I want you to tell me if you sense anything.
She said, Kathy,
and I did not know the story. I did not know about her. And I walked into the room, and women will get this, men will roll their eyes. But it was like all of a sudden I had a horrible PMS episode. I thought I was just going to start sobbing. I was so devastated. I was incredibly sad. And then as soon as I walked out of the room, it was immediately gone. So when I told our teacher who had experience with the Goldfield Hotel, she's going, that's Elizabeth. And then she told me the story.
Who had experience with the Goldfield Hotel, she's going, that's Elizabeth. And then she told me the story.
Then there was also the really tangible experience of feeling your hair stroked. What was that like?
This is a night that left me overwhelmed.
It was very, very
This is after we got the Class A EVP in the basement, and we were just taking a break. It was probably 1 in the morning. I was sitting against a wall on a bench against the wall.
It was probably 1 in the morning.
And I was talking to Janice, the instructor, and I was telling her how sick I'd been. And how I was really worried about coming on this overnight investigation because I'd been so ill. And then I could just kind of feel fingers parting my hair. and just kind of stroking
then I
like
could just
this.
kind of feel.
And so like my hands like went like this. I stopped
hair.
talking and I'm thinking, do I have bugs in my hair,
like
spiders in my hair?
And, so
and I'm like doing this and she's like, what's going on? And I'm going, something is touching me, something is touching me. And it was later, after I thought about it, that this happened when I was talking about how difficult my life had become.
It was later, after I thought about it, that
and my sense is the entity was trying to soothe me and trying to say, hang in there. So it was something that was
the entity was
very odd, but it was also very calming in a way.
So it was something that was very odd, but it was also very calming in a way.
Oh, that's sweet. So for 18 years, you'd had chronic fatigue syndrome and the residue of a virus that you got in Africa that was really debilitating. That's
it
a long
had been
time
something
to
that
suffer.
I had given up all hope that I would ever get better. I just figured I just had to make do and get by, but I could not.
That I would ever get better.
The energy was really bad. You couldn't stand up for very long. You couldn't walk for very long. And here I was on this all-night trip that I didn't want to be on, but my boss said, a TV station asks you to spend the night and you've got a reporter's attention for 24 hours. You're going.
To spend the night and you've got a reporter's attention for 24 hours. You're going.
You also heard footsteps and knocking that you actually heard yourself.
Pronounced, and this was further. This was later into the night. And I'm a chicken. I admit it. I'm a coward.
This was later into the night.
I always made sure whenever we went anywhere, because we always stayed as a group, because we didn't want someone to be in another room and us think that's an entity.
We went anywhere,
and so I was never the first in line. I was never the last in line. Never. I was right in the middle.
And so I was never the first.
That I had people that I could see that were real around me.
I was in the middle.
All of a sudden,
I had people that I could see that were real
TV camera lights died.
All of a sudden,
and I had this big, huge mag light.
The TV camera
and the cameraman goes, I need light. I can't take pictures without light. Will you go in the front of the group and shine the flashlight so that I at least have something so that the camera can pick up some detail? So we were on the fourth floor, and we were walking. We came up to the big central staircase, and all of a sudden, it sounded like a football linebacker charging up the stairs, just charging. It was loud. It was fast. I braced myself to be hit. I let out this squeal that they're still laughing about at KTVM. And the anchor man who was behind me plastered himself against the wall. And we were like, what was that? I mean, we both heard it. I mean, it was so loud. And we both heard it. And the cameraman goes, oh, don't worry. When I get back to the studio, I'm sure I can bring out that sound. But the sound never recorded.
The cameraman goes, oh, don't worry. When I get back to the studio,
my scream did. My squeal of horror did, but not the footsteps.
My scream did. My squeal of horror did, but not the footsteps.
Were there any other specific experiences that you had in the hotel that you left out?
Well, we were in there for 12 hours. Well, probably probably just about 12 hours.
We were
so
in there for
near the
12
end,
hours.
when I was really shell-shocked, we just decided to just sit in the lobby of the hotel with all the lights off and just see what any of us would sense. And most of us did see these black, shadowy entities. They weren't people-shaped or anything, but kind of like going through the top of the near the ceiling, moving around. And then away from the ceiling. So
near the ceiling.
And that was probably more Halloween-like and ghost-like than anything else I experienced.
And that was probably more Halloween-like and ghost-like than anything else I experienced that night.
Do you have any idea what that was? It's just the energy
I have
of
no idea.
spirits
I've never
in the
figured out
room?
what it was. If it was just
have
a different type of
I have
energy
no idea. I've
that was
never
moving
figured out
around
what it
or
was.
what. But the way
If it was
it
just
moved,
a
it
different
wasn't a
type of
shadow
energy
and it
that was
wasn't being
moving
caused
around
by
or what.
anything.
But the way
At that point,
it
there really
moved,
wasn't
it
any
wasn't a
traffic
shadow,
driving by
and it
to
wasn't being
cause
caused
any
by anything.
issues.
At that point, there really
So I have
wasn't
never
any
figured
traffic
that one
driving
out.
by.
But when I
caused
walked out
any
of that hotel, I
issues.
think we finally called it
So
quits
I have
about
never figured that one
4:45 in the
out.
morning.
But
Now
when
take
I
it, there are
walked
no
out of that
bathrooms, there
hotel,
are
I
no
think we
there's
finally
no running
called it
water.
quits about 4:45 in the
So,
morning.
and when we left,
Now
I
take it,
thought,
there are
I
no
will
bathrooms, there
never
are no
set
there's
foot
no
in
running
this
water.
building again.
So, and when we left, I thought, I will never set foot in this building again.
Wow. And then your friend who you called Charlotte was able to tell you what you saw and didn't even know that you saw. She was so clairvoyant. Like she described the little boy wearing the shorts that little boys used to wear, like British little boys wear. So
Well, and when
what's,
I left the Goldfield
what happened
Hotel,
with Charlotte?
I was stuck in
And
this deep
and
mind fog.
When I left
It
the
was like
Goldfield
my brain
Hotel,
was so
I was
stuffed
stuck
with
in
stuff
this deep,
that I couldn't
mind
concentrate.
fog.
I couldn't think.
It was like
It
my brain
was-
was so stuffed with
It was
stuff.
the weirdest
Overwhelmed.
experience. It was just like I was just overwhelmed.
It was,
And so when I went to see
it was
her,
the weirdest experience.
I had
It was
no
just
idea.
like-
And
it was just
I've heard this
overwhelming.
sense from other friends.
so when I
That
went
they're
to
like,
see
well, we never
her,
told you, Kathy, because we
I
thought you'd
had
think
no
we're
idea.
crazy,
And I've
which
heard
I
this
would
sense from
have
other
back
friends
then.
that they're like, well,
And
we
so
never
she's
told
saying,
Kathy,
you saw
'cause we
this,
thought you'd
and
think
that's
we're
one of the
crazy,
reasons
which
why
I
your
would
brain is
have
so
back then.
full. You're
And so she's
processing
saying,
it.
you saw this.
And,
that's,
you know,
that's one of the reasons why
she-
your brain is so
And
full.
there were bizarre
You're
things she knew,
processing.
and there was no way anybody would
you
know. When we had been in there maybe 20 minutes, and it was during the daytime, and they just wanted to get establishing shots. One of the TV people tripped. He just tripped. There was nothing there. And everybody was like making a big joke over it. And she told me, she goes, oh, well, you know, when that guy tripped. And I said, yeah. And she goes, he tripped over a ghost dog. And I just laughed.
oh, well,
And I'm like, oh, come on.
tripped.
But who, you know, and I'm like, okay, so who'd you talk to? Did you talk to Janice? Did you talk to Bill? You know, who'd you talk to? And she's like, I haven't talked to anybody. She goes, I can see that you saw him trip over a dog.
I haven't talked to anybody.
That's not something people talk about. I mean, out of everything that happened that night, why would anybody mention, oh, so-and-so tripped?
That's not something people
I mean, it's
talk
just
about.
not
I mean,
that
out of
important.
Everything that happened
And
that
she was
night,
able to do
why
that
would
time and
anybody
time
mention,
again,
oh,
going,
so-and-so
oh, remember
tripped?
when this happened and that
I mean,
happened.
It's just not that
And it
important.
seemed so minor. And
she
she's
was
like,
able
you
to
saw
do that
this, you
time
saw
and time
that.
again,
It's,
going, oh,
she said it was
this
like
happened and that happened.
she could see a
And
movie
it seemed so
playing
minor.
in my
It's like,
mind
you saw this, you
of
saw
what
that.
I had
She
experienced.
said it was like she could see a movie playing in my mind of what I had experienced.
What
Janice
about Janice?
is a
How
very
did she
prolific
become a
author
ghost hunter? Or what's
and
her
historian.
title?
And I'm not sure
Janice
why
is
she
a very
ended up
prolific
getting
author
involved with ghost
and
investigations.
historian.
But she was
I'm
doing
not
this
sure
before
why she
anybody
ended
else
up
really
getting
was. You never
involved
heard
with
about
ghost
it.
investigations.
And
But
she
was
had
doing
probably
this
10,
before
15 years
anybody else
experience
really
when I
was. You
met
never
her in
heard
the
of
year
that.
2000
And
of investigating
she
the
had probably
paranormal.
10, 15 years
And
experience when I
she's
met her in
great.
the year
She's skeptical.
2000
I think the best
of
ghost
investigating
hunters
the paranormal.
are skeptical.
And
Because
she's great.
you
She's
don't
skeptical. I
want to
think the
just
best
fall for
ghost
anything.
hunters
You want to be
are
able to look at
skeptical.
things objectively.
Because you don't want to just fall for anything. You want to be able to look at things
Janice
objectively.
Oberding,
What's her last name so people can
Oberding.
see her books?
She's written a lot of ghost books. She writes true crime. She writes historical.
She's written a lot of ghost books. She writes true crime. She writes historical.
Mm-hmm. And then was it the same group who went to another hotel where Marilyn Monroe and Frank Sinatra had stayed, and you saw the room where a man had committed suicide and people said, "Oh no, that couldn't happen in this room," and then the manager said, "Oh, well, it's been remodeled."
That
and
was
that's
a
what
few
did
weeks
happen.
later because
So,
the
was that a
TV station
different
wanted us to go
night, or when was
to
that?
3 different
That
historical
was a
sites.
few weeks later.
So the first one was the
TV
Goldfield
station
Hotel.
wanted us to go to,
Then we went to the
3
Cal
different
Neva
historical
Lodge, which
sites.
is up at
So
the
the
north
first one
shore
was
of
the
Lake
Goldfield
Tahoe in
Hotel.
Crystal Bay.
Then we went
It's
to the
been
Cal Neva
closed for a
Lodge,
while
which is
now.
up
It
at
was
the
open
north
at the
shore of
time,
Lake Tahoe
but
in
it used to be
Crystal
owned
Bay.
by Frank Sinatra.
It's been closed
So
for a
the Rat
while
Pack
now.
spent a
It
lot
was
of time
open
there.
at the time, but it
And
used to be
so
owned by
I
Frank
was still
Sinatra.
reeling from
So the
everything
Rat
that
Pack
happened
spent
at
a lot of time
Goldfield.
there.
And
And so I was still
essentially, the
reeling
Goldfield
from
Hotel
everything that
opened up my
happened at
third eye,
Goldfield.
and it removed my
And
belief that these things can't
essentially, the
exist,
Goldfield Hotel
and
opened
it
up
removed
third
my
eye.
belief
And it
that
removed
I have a
my
great
belief
imagination,
that these things
that
can't
I was
exist.
explaining anything that
And
happened
it
in my life. What a
removed my
coincidence!
belief
What
that
an
I have a great
imagination I have.
imagination.
And
That
so
I was
I
explaining
was standing
anything
in the
that happened in my
back
life. What a
of
coincidence.
the
What
hotel
an
room, and I
imagination
had
have.
the manager on one
And
side of me at
so
the
I was
property
standing in the
and the
back
anchor,
of the hotel
and
room, and
the
I had
psychics
the
and the
manager on one
investigators
side
were
of me at
standing
the
near this
property
window, and I
and
saw a man
anchor,
swinging
and
from a noose.
the
I saw
psychics
I
and
saw
the
him standing
investigators
there
were
looking
standing near
out the
this
window, and then I saw
a
him
man swinging
hanging and
from a
swinging,
noose. I
and
saw
that's
I saw
probably
him
the most
standing there
terrifying
looking out the
thing I
window,
have
and then I saw
seen.
him hanging
And
and swinging, and
thank goodness I never saw his face. And so when I said, this guy hung himself here right in front of the window, and everybody's going, no, there's nowhere to do it. And that's when the manager said, yeah, he did, and we redecorated, and we took out the fixture that he hung himself.
The manager said, yeah, he did, and we redecorated, and we took out the fixture that he hung himself on.
What did you feel?
That's an interesting
Marilyn
place.
Monroe's
a lot
face?
of people feel a lot of different things. I believe I heard rumors that they razed the cabin, that the last people that owned it destroyed all the cabins, so that's not there. There were underground tunnels that connected the cabins to the showroom, so the stars could go back and forth without having to deal with people. And I remember sitting there, and I've actually been there a couple times, so I may not relay the right experience, but I remember just feeling this crushing pressure in my chest, just tightness and almost hard to breathe, and that was in her room. So, but like I said, I've been there several times, so I don't remember which one was the first time.
So, but like I said, I've been there several times, so I don't remember which one was the first time.
So
not
your
going to make the
feeling
comment
is
because
that
I really
she
don't
did
know. I don't
commit
feel like
suicide
I got
or
any information from
I'm
that.
not going to make a comment because I really don't know. I don't feel like
I'm not even sure I sensed Marilyn. It may have been someone else that had stayed in that room.
So
I'm not even sure I sensed Marilyn. It may have been someone else that had stayed in that room.
Right. So the outcome of all these experiences is that you really changed your view of God and spirituality and opened up so that you had angelic communications,
well, I think
and
because
what you felt
I
like
went
was the voice of God.
This whole range of emotions.
Like?
I thought I was really losing my mind. I came back from Goldfield and I thought, okay, this is it. I'm spiraling into madness because this can't be true. None of this can be true. And luckily, I had people put in my life that helped me through it, helped me understand what I was going through. And I had brought an entity home with me after Goldfield. Or it came to visit me afterwards, one or the other. I would hear footsteps every night coming down the hall, starting at the far end of the house, coming down the hall, coming to my room, standing at the edge of my bed. And I think it was like after the fourth, fifth night of this, and I was just getting to the point where I was just scared to death to go to bed. I'd have my Bible, clutched to me and my covers over my head. And when it happened at that point, I'm just like, God, why are you doing this to me? Why are you letting this happen? I am so angry angry. I was so upset. I was so scared.
God, why are you doing this to me? Why
and
are
I
you
was
letting
told,
this happen?
don't you understand? I've been here all along. And I put people in your life, and I gave you experiences to help you process this and get through this. And this is all part of my plan. This is all part of my growth. You know? So it was different from what I thought. If someone would have said that all these paranormal experiences, I would have thought it'd be like Stephen King and horror movies. And everything was pretty much, for the most part, except for the bitch guy and the startling from the staircase, was very positive and was very life affirming and just was very positive. I found it a blessing. I found that it changed my complete view of the afterlife and the ideas of eventual God. My complete view of the afterlife and the ideas of eventual God.
Mm-hmm. And it seems like your 18 years of chronic fatigue.
Well, it's a complicated thing. Yes. So
is that true?
For 10 years after Goldfield Hotel, I was very healthy.
Well, it's a complicated
thing.
Yes.
But I've since come down with something else. But no one can explain. They think it's the same thing that I had before. But no one can explain the 10 years of good health. That's a mystery because they said that doesn't happen. But no one can explain the 10 years of good health. That's a mystery because they said that doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm. So do you think it was because you made contact, like you say, you opened your sixth chakra, that you opened up to the divine?
I think
and it allowed
this was all part of the grand scheme.
Remission or whatever it is.
Because there's no way I could have written a book on top of my job the way I was feeling and being so sick. And I think that by releasing the fear, which I think was huge, because I had been holding on to so much fear about God. God was always looking for me to screw up, and that no matter what I did, I could never be good enough. And when I felt the unconditional love from the divine. And after Goldfield, I just started getting revelations, and I started getting these things that would just randomly pop into my brain. This is what the afterlife is like. This is what heaven's like. This is what hell's like. I mean, I would just out of the blue, not be thinking about it, and just pop in. This is what heaven's like. And it just turned out to be an amazing, positive experience for me, and it helped me grasp the idea that God is so much greater than the little box I had put him in. That he's managing. I'm saying he just because that's the way I was grown. I don't think God's a male or female. I'm saying he. But I believe that he looks over all of us, helps us. He creates situations for us to give us experiences that prepare us down the line. So, especially like this year has been so weird, and I just keep thinking we're being prepared. So we're learning, we're growing from this, and this experience with COVID and our world and national situation, that this is preparing us for later, so that we'll have tools, and then later we'll be able to say, I went through this, this, and this, and I learned these things. We'll have tools, and then later we'll be able to say, I went through this, this, and this, and I learned these things.
Mm-hmm. So you kind of came to new recognition of what heaven and hell and the afterlife
is what we
like.
create.
Could you paint a picture of that for us?
Hell is no one is tougher on us than we are. Is what we create. That God is absolute unconditional love. No one is tougher on us than we are. He is not. That God is absolute unconditional love. Excuse me, I need water. He is not. I need water.
Sure.
No one can create hell for us except us. And when you're afraid to go to God when you die, no one can. That's when you create hell. And when you're afraid to go to God when you die, heaven, I think, is the ultimate freedom. When you create hell. I think we can go anywhere, anytime. Heaven, time travel, is the ultimate freedom. I think we can go anywhere, anytime.
time travel.
And I think that love
so
guides
sorry.
all.
Oh, that's okay.
That with love,
sorry.
we can do anything.
And I think that love guides all. That with love, we can do anything.
I'm thinking of people like Eben Alexander, the surgeon who had the near-death experience, being in coma for a couple weeks, who's in my Mysteries of Reality book. It's part of the series. And what he said is that he feels that many people do go through a life review where they, after they die, they go through their life. And the purpose is to see what lessons have we learned? How do we need to grow? So there's like a evolutionary process of growth and evolution that we're here for. So that because there's consequences of our action, it makes it understandable to me why some people would suffer and something that is called
Alexander's
hell.
book, Proof of Heaven. And I remember some of the things that he encountered, I thought in a lot of ways it felt like I did the same. So even though it wasn't a near-death experience, I think a lot of the outcomes and a lot of my realizations were similar to what someone with a near-death experience would have had, which it was the death of my old reality, because I realized my idea of reality was far too narrow.
Because I realized my idea of reality was far too narrow.
Is there anything else that we haven't talked about?
Just
that comes
anything
to
is
mind
possible.
that you'd like to share?
You know, everything is possible, and the universe is trying to make everything better for us, and we need to let go, and we need to stop being hard on ourselves, and we need to stop fearing the unknown. Just because we don't understand something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It doesn't mean it's bad. It's just we're here to experience. And there's so much for us to get out of this life here.
We're here to experience.
You know, this is a real gift. And even when times are tough, it's still a gift.
You know, this is a real gift. And even when times are tough, it's still a gift.
Right. I mean, I had a spiritual teacher who said steel has to go through the molten fire to burn out the impurity so that it becomes strong. And that to me is a good analogy for life. So just because something is problematic or difficult or challenging, it doesn't mean we're being punished. It means we're given an opportunity to get purified and stronger like steel.
Definitely. I agree.
Thank you.